My name's Larry Moore, and I'm the director of baseball in the Berkshires. I'm not actually a native of Berkshire County. I was brought up in New York City, but ended up going to Springfield College and taking a teaching job first in Lexington and then here in Central Berkshire Regional School District. I taught here for 39 years, teaching physical education to many, many boys and girls. But one of my passions was sports, soccer, baseball. But then I got into baseball and realized the history here in Berkshire County. It's absolutely mystifying how we can have 38 major leaguers, 2 of which are in the Hall of Fame, 162 minor leaguers, and over 70 non-player personnel, all from this county. It's crazy stuff. We've been around for about 4 years. Our first exhibit was at Arrowhead, Herman Melville's home. We spent 2 months there, another week at the Country Club of Pittsfield, and then we started to get serious. We got incorporated, we got our 501c3, and in the meantime convinced them all if they would give us a storefront, we could bring more people in. We were there 3 years until their closing last spring. Over 6,000 people visited us on the 3 days we were open for 6 hours each day. So we sort of held up our end of the bargain. We are now in storage until we had this exhibit. We had a big autograph signing session one day last year on September 14th when Turk and Dan and Jim and Jeff were here signing autographs. So that brings us to today and our exhibit, Take Me Out to the Ball Game. You're going to see over 1,200 pictures and artifacts. And it's a great time for people of all ages to enjoy. As you walk in, on your right, you're going to see posters that talk about recreational baseball in the Berkshires, minor league baseball, and major league baseball. On your left, you're going to see the Berkshire Adult Baseball League. That league has been around since 2011, started by Lou Orazio, and also next is today's game, where we have clippings of what's been going on in baseball. Not too much right now, but at the same time, we have some clips from last year there for you to see also. As you enter the first room of our exhibit, to your left is the famous 1791 broken window law. This is the first mention of baseball being played in the United States. 1791, way before the Hall of Fame at one time claimed that Abner Doubleday invented baseball in the 1800s. Well, right around 2000, investigators found out that Abner Doubleday did not invent baseball. That commission, called the Mills Commission, around the early 1900s, investigated and came up with Abner Doubleday's name. Although Abner Doubleday was famous for firing the first shot at Fort Sumter, during the Civil War, he did not invent baseball. Moving on, the next display is of the first college game. The first college game in the United States was played in Pittsfield in 1859 between Amherst and Williams. It was a day of brains and brawn, brawn being baseball, brains being chess. Yes, they had an intercollegiate chess match at the same time. The results of the baseball game left the Lord Jets of Amherst very happy because they beat the Williams College by the score of 73-32. You're saying, wow, look at that score. But please remember, the game back then was played without foul lines. So you could hit the ball frontwards, backwards, or sideways, which led to a very high scoring game. Talking a little bit more about the 1870s, here we have scorecards from the 1870s. We have the Pittsfields playing the Springfields, playing the Troy Haymakers. So there is proof of the games really being serious. The Old Elms were our first team. Our next exhibit is on Wacona Park, good old Wacona Park. The Burbank family put it together about 1892. They didn't give it to the city until 1919, but many great baseball games were played there. The Hillies, the Electrics, and all those wonderful farm teams from the Red Sox and the Astros and the Senators, Mets and Cubs, many, many teams. Back in 2000, we had a group of local athletes that reenacted a lot of the old games by putting on Hillies uniforms and tossing the ball underhand. What a wonderful time that was. It was even shown on ESPN. Our next section is our Black History section. And boy, is there a lot of Black history here in Berkshire County. We start with Frank Grant. Frank Grant was born in Pittsfield, raised in Williamstown. He was a great baseball player for the Cuban Giants and the Cuban ex-Giants. Now you need to remember that the Negro Leagues did not start until 1920. Frank Grant played baseball in the 1800s. He was known as the Black Dunlap, one of the greatest second basemen of all times. He was recognized by the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2006 and was elected into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Our next investigation went into women playing baseball. Well, I was reading a book on women in baseball and found in 1905, Miss Hall's School of Pittsfield had 2 baseball teams. Well, we went and knocked on the door, asked if they had any pictures, and sure enough, here are the young ladies playing baseball. We've had a lot of women that have played baseball. We found co-ed games being played in Lenox in the 1800s. Then we found a young lady by the name of Joan Crockwell in the 1950s tried out for the Chicago Collegians. They said she had a good chance of making the team, but I heard her father just didn't want her playing that game. Your next display is our hallway of towns and high schools. On your left, you're going to see posters of pictures from different towns dating back to the 1800s and catching all the way up to today's game. So you go from Sheffield, Monterey, Ashley Falls to Great Barrington, Housatonic, Sandusfield, and on all the way down to Williamstown. On your right, you're going to see cases that are dedicated to the towns themselves, some of the players there. One of the great professional baseball pitchers to come from Dalton is the Terminator, Jeff Reardon. Jeff played for many baseball teams, the Red Sox, the Expos, the Cincinnati Reds, the New York Mets, and the New York Yankees, and won a world championship or World Series with the Minnesota Twins. When you come to this exhibit, not only will you see Jeff in many of our pictures that we have displayed here, but you also see a quick clip on the Terminator. He was known as one of the best relief pitchers, closers of his time. Now, Jeff is on the right as you enter this room. On the left is what we call Berkshire County's golden age of baseball. This is the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Even in Beckett, they were playing baseball at that time. You had the Nationwides, the Dalton Esso, the Tyler Aces, the Majestic, and the Brass Rail. They all played in leagues. Pittsfield had 8 to 10 teams in the league. Dalton had another 6 to 8 teams. Great Barrington had more. And these teams were so good, they went to national championships. Dalton Esso, the Nationwides, Tyler Aces, Majestic, and the Brass Rail. In 1949, the Brass Rail went to national championship and won it. The Majestics did the same thing in 1952. Great players from this time. Great pictures. Come and see them. So next, we have the collegiate teams. The Berkshire County Summer Collegiate Teams. So you have 2 leagues. One consists of the North Adams Steeplecats. That's the New England Collegiate Baseball League. And then you have the Futures Collegiate Baseball League, and that's the Suns. Now, we didn't mention this, but the Suns have that name, the Suns, for a reason. Because when Mr. Burbank built that field, he built it facing the wrong direction. So when the sun sets about 7 o'clock at night during the summer, it shines right in the batter's eyes. And they have to take a time out for a half an hour until the sun completely sets and they can turn the lights on. Now, that was never a problem in the early days because all the games were day games. They weren't night games. So that's why that problem wasn't discovered immediately. So in the corner, you have the early teams, the Electrics and the Hillies, and we have some pictures there. We then have a case talking about the Pittsfield Mets, some programs, and some of the great minor league players. Here we list all the minor league players that were born or raised or settled here in Berkshire County. Right now, on that list, there's 162. But somebody pointed out to me I missed one. So there's actually 163. On the wall here, we have some interesting things that were talked about in the newspaper about 2 weeks ago, and that's stock certificates from the Pittsfield Professional Baseball Corporation. Some of the pictures of the stock certificates date back to the 1919 and all the way up to the 40s. At the same time, as you walk down this aisle, on your right, you're going to see cases that have some minor league artifacts. We talk about the Red Sox, the Pittsfield Red Sox, and we have a Carlton Fisk autographed glove. He played for the Pittsfield Red Sox in the 1960s. Some local players, Archie Allen, Ed Willie, Tino Cardarelli, Larry Bossidy on your left. As we come down here, you have more of the programs with Ryan Cameron on top. Ryan here talking to a famous ex-president of the United States. On your right, we have Richard Harris, minor league baseball player. But what makes him so interesting is his family have donated his professional contracts. Interesting to see exactly how much he got paid. So as you come down, on your left, you have more baseball players. You have Donnie Troy, Skeet Shook, Brian House, Peter Greenbush. Brian House played for the Pittsfield Cubs. And now we come to our non-player professional baseball personnel. These are the people that are general managers, announcers, umpires, organ players, mascots, people like that. And we have over 70 of them. One of them was Jim Duquette. Another one was his cousin, Dan Duquette. You have the famous Ken Griffey Jr. being signed by Pittsfield resident scout Tom Mooney. Tom Mooney was a scout for the Mariners at that time, but he has a case here too, which shows his Astros uniform he wore as a scout when he was with the Astros. Look closely, you may see Yogi Berra's signature there as well. And over here we have another case, and this case talks about Ed Ladley. Ed said that in 1958, he had just graduated from St. Peter's Prep in Staten Island, New York. And the scout for the Dodgers came to his house, picked him up, took him to Ebbets Field to play with all these Dodger rookies. They played all summer long as a Dodger rookie team, playing in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, just in the metropolitan area, with the promise that the best players would get a contract. Well, the night before the fateful day, he cuts his pitching thumb in a kitchen accident. No contract. Goes to Niagara University on a dual scholarship, basketball and baseball. Gets chased by the Orioles and the Pirates, but goes into the armed services. He says, "But Larry, come to the house. I have something you might want." And I figure a glove, a bat, a pair of shoes. I go to the house, and he has a 1957 home Brooklyn Dodger uniform. You scratch your head and say, how did he ever get that? Well, where did the Dodgers go in 57? They went to LA. So the Dodger team had all these home uniforms from 57 with no eBay to sell them on. So they gave them to the Dodger rookie team in 58. So our other Hall of Famer is Jack Chesbro, sometimes called Cheesebro. Jack is from North Adams, and he played for the New York Highlanders in 1904. In 1904, Jack started 51 games. He completed 48 of them. He won 41 of them, a record today that will probably never, ever be broken. So as you move around on your left, as you continue following the arrows, you're going to have our major league players. Amazing, 38 major league players. Starting Dale Long right there in the middle, and Doc Powers, Art Ditmar, who we saw a little bit earlier, Earl Turner, Gene Hermansky. Gene Hermansky played with Jackie Robinson. His character was even featured in the movie about Jackie Robinson, 42. So as you move around on your left, you're going to see Tom Grieve, who played for the Rangers, but he also is involved in baseball still, as he is an announcer for the Rangers today after being general manager for them. On the wall, you'll see a little frame with many of our major leaguers' baseball cards. Another picture of Jim Bouton. And then we go to Jonah Bayless. Jonah Bayless was from Williamstown. He played for the Royals and for the Pirates. And over here, you will find his first major league strikeout, which was Frank Thomas. Quite the first strikeout. He then went on and also played in Japan as well. One of the other major league players from Berkshire County that played in Japan was Matt White. Matt has quite the story too. Matt graduated from Wacona Regional High School and had committed to go to MCLA. However, he got an invitation to play for the New England Lightning Summer Collegiate League. In his first game, Matt pitched a no-hitter. A person at the game was the assistant coach from Clemson University, and on the spot offered Matt White a full boat to Clemson. Obviously, he went to Clemson. He also played for the Boston Red Sox and was in the minor league system of the Los Angeles Dodgers. But some little story that some people know about Matt is he helped out a relative that was going into a nursing home and bought a piece of land from them. Well, the piece of land, come to find out, had stone in it worth billions of dollars. However, the downside of the story is it costs an awful lot of money to get the stone out of the ground. So although he was known in a Sports Illustrated article as the billionaire minor league player for the Dodgers, that billionaire never came to light. Across from Jonah and Matt, we have Turk Wendell. Turk was a great pitcher in high school and for Quinnipiac College. He went on to play professional baseball, pitching for the Braves, the Cubs, and the Mets. But Turk had Turk's quirks. Turk was a little different. Instead of chewing tobacco, he chewed licorice because he knew tobacco was bad for you. But the only trouble with chewing licorice is that the sugar in licorice would rot your teeth. So every inning, when he got off the mound, he would go in the dugout and brush his teeth. Thus you will see licorice and a toothbrush and toothpaste in his case, along with a bottle of honey. Now you say, why honey? Well, Turk was the national spokesman for the National Honey Association for a year. Thus, we put a bottle of honey there. Also jumping off over the foul lines, not allowing the umpire to throw the ball back to him. If the umpire threw the ball, he'd let it hit his chest, hit the ground to get all the umpire's bad mojo off of it, and then pick it up. Then our next person we have is the great shortstop, Mark Belanger. Mark was awarded 8 gold gloves, known for his sterling defense, helped lead them to a world championship. Mark, in his off time, worked for Bessie Clark, which was a sporting men's store on North Street. On the video is a documentary done by another Pittsfield resident, Dominic Dastoli. It premiered 2 years ago, and you should look for it on MLB TV because it's going to be featured there very soon. So as we continue on your left to our last display, it has to do with baseball and seeing the world. As one of our professional players from Williamstown was Bob Pettit. He played in the 1880s. And he was invited by Albert Spalding to join him on a barnstorming tour around the world. Can you imagine going on a trip around the world in the 1880s? That would be quite the boat ride. But as we jump ahead to a little bit more modern times, Drury High School in 1978, after finishing their regular season, their coach took them on a trip to Taiwan with stops in Disneyland, and on the way back, of course, Hawaii completed the trip. Boy, why don't you and I ever sign up for field trips like that? The middle of this display talks about Babe Ruth. And when you come to the exhibit and you look at Great Barrington in South County, you're going to see a lot of pictures of Babe Ruth because he loved the Berkshires for hunting, fishing, playing golf, betting on the races at the Barrington Fair. And in 1938, he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers at Noel Field in North Adams. It's amazing stuff. How many baseball players, big name baseball players, came to the Berkshires? Satchel Paige, Carlton Fisk, Reggie Smith. Joe DiMaggio went to Berkshire Downs. Lou Gehrig, we talked about. It's a wonderful, wonderful story of Berkshire County. Come visit us and even have your picture taken with Babe Ruth.